Amid Aleph. Just right at the bottom of Nun Hey. Now we're in the sugya of people who are accused of different averas. In fact, they didn't do those averas. So we began with Ruvain, and then we went to Bnei Eli, and now we're going to Bnei Shmuel. Bnei Shmuel are accused of taking bribery. They're accused of taking bribery. Again, Matzah Yisod, Kol Omer Bnei Shmuel Choden El Torah, meaning they did do an avera, but not necessarily the avera that the Torah is accusing them of. Okay. Amar Shmuel Nachmeni, Amar B'Yenison, Kol Omer Amar Aleph Bnei Shmuel Chatu. Anyone who says Bnei Shmuel did an avera in El Torah, making a mistake. Shnemar, Vayihi, and it says Kasher Zokin Shmuel, Leholchu Bana B'Drachav. The son's not going his way. Who do Leholchu? But Michtanami Lechatu. They didn't go. They weren't like their father, but nonetheless they didn't do an avera. Almani Mekayim. I can say they didn't do an avera. It says Vayitu Achrei Abatza. They went after bribery. They didn't do like Shmuel. They didn't do like Shmuel. Shmuel at Tzaddik Machse b'chol mekamis Yisrael. Shmuel at Tzaddik, he went from all places. He went all around. B'don oisam b'areim, and he judged people in their cities. He was a traveling court. Shenemar v'holach midei shana b'shana. He would go from year to year. The Siva, Beisel, V'Gilgal, V'Mitzvah, and all these places. V'shafat es Yisrael. However, V'heim, Bnei Shmuel lo yasukein. They didn't do that. El Yashba Reihem, they stood in their cities. Kidei laharbe schar, in order that people would come to them. And as a result, they'd be being marbe schar l'chazneim to the shamashim, u'l'seifreim and to the scribes. So this is considered like Batsheva. They're using their position for gain. That the people there were gaining. The people there were gaining, meaning his own personal attendance. Kit Hanoy, Machlekes Hanoy, whether they sinned or not. It says Vayikmi Batsheva. But Meir says Chelkum Sholu B'Piyam. They asked for my Sarishan. That's not really a chait. They asked for my Sarishan. So that's like a bribe, I guess. But Yehuda Omer Mole Yatilu Al Balei Batim. They would go ahead and here they abuse their position. They would give pragmati. They'd give merchandise to people to sell, and the people who sell, they would when they would come for a judgment, they would get a positive, whatever they want. So that is bribery, right? By going ahead and showing favoritism to people as a result of showing favoritism to people as a result of them taking, their business in hand, that would be something that would be considered tantamount. So that would be an avera. They took more than this year. They took what the matanis, either the matas kahuna they took, or they went ahead and again similar to matas levia maisa, and they gave. So what was the difference between this and that?
How could they take manas kahuna? They were leviim.
That's the avera. That's the avera. Okay, so he asked for it, or they again. So the machlekes tanoim is Levi Meir. They didn't do anything wrong. Levi Meir, in fact, they didn't do anything wrong. Levi Meir. Why do I have tiny up here on the screen?
Rabbi, where are you up to?
What? Well, I'm up to the two dots on Nun Vav Amid Aleph. So again, according to the latter tanoim, they did do an avera. According to the latter tanoim, they did do an avera. According to the previous tanoim, according to Meir, they didn't do an avera. Okay. The next one line is Dovid, and I always feel a need to speak this out because most people don't learn Tanakh, and Dovid HaMelech, in fact, took a beating for the Maisa with Batsheva. Okay, here's the background. Here's what happened. Dovid, we were told that Dovid is one day sitting. He sees a woman, Rechetzas al Agag, and she was taller. She was washing herself up from going to the mikvah. She wasn't in other words, to retire herself from being a nida. Dovid asks about this woman, who she is, finds out that she's Batsheva bas Aliyah, and Dovid is ma'anis her, and she gets pregnant, and then Nasa Navi comes and accuses Dovid of taking a poor man's only wife when he has other wives. Dovid had many wives. Dovid says Chatasi. Now the biggest question is, of course, is this Ashes Ish over here. How in the world can you go ahead and take an Ashes Ish? So as we're going to see, that's the Gemara addresses. Kol David chatu with Batsheva in Elatoya. Anyone who says David was chayted Batsheva is making a mistake. The mistake is that she wasn't an Eishes Ish and the chay wasn't with Batsheva. What the chay was, I'm going to share with you today a fantastic machlokas. But there was no chay with Batsheva. We're going to have machlokas Rashi and Tosfos as to how that happened. According to Rashi, they would go ahead and give a get, and the get would be retroactively. Any person who did to war and did not come back would be divorced. And therefore what? And therefore Dovid was not with an Eishes Ish. According to Ben Tam, they would divorce B'tzina outright. Clandestinely, they would divorce outright. And when Dovid was Batsheva, the question of Rashi is obvious. The Chayra is placing himself in a suffix, correct? He's placing himself in a suffix. What happens if he shows up in battle? He comes back home. Then retroactively, Dovid would have been with an Eishes Ish. In fact, he does come home, and Dovid commands him to go home, and Uriah does not go home. Uriah does not go home, and as a result, Uriah is married to Malchus. And therefore, Dovid goes ahead and puts a machination where he sends Uriah off to war and tells Yoav to put him, again, if there's a war against Bnei Ammon, and he tells him, go ahead, in that war, they should put him in the forefront, and that's what happened. He got killed in battle. Okay. One of the biggest questions I had was, he was sending him home to cover up the fact that Batsheva was pregnant. Good. If you go through the motions, then let's say, like Rashi again, he's killing himself. David's willing to kill himself in order to go ahead and avoid Batsheva going through the embarrassment. But what about Loit Rabbeinu Tam? She's divorced outright. She's pregnant with David's child. You're going ahead. You're sending him home, right? You're sending him home for what? To save an embarrassment. L'chorah, this child will never be able to get married. You wouldn't know who the child is. If the child was if the child was with what? You have to wait 3 months. L'chera, what's going on over here? You know, it doesn't, David, if you're absolving him for the Eishes Ish, I understand. But the sequence of motion doesn't make sense over here. So I saw a wonderful Alshich. The Alshich says that's why we're stressing that she wasn't a Nida, that she was just a Nida and going to the mikvah. Since she was just a Nida, you know she wasn't pregnant. Then Mela, who was the child? It was David's child. So it was never Shiloh that it was what? It would be Uriah's child. David had planned to send Uriah home to save the embarrassment, says the Alshich, and then David would have raised the child. The child is not a mamzer, the child is a pogum. He's ben or bas man Saslai for a woman that you ma'anis. And therefore, David would have treated him accordingly. But to save Batsheva the embarrassment that she had been impregnated by him when her husband was in battle, he wasn't a husband yet, that's the Alshich that explains that. It's fascinating. Okay? So let's begin the sugya. I'm Rav Shmuel Nachmani, I'm Rav Yonasan son. Anyone who says David was chayt is making a mistake. Again, what's the chayt? The chayt is of Batsheva. Anyone who says the chayt was Batsheva, says Rashi, the Batsheva koydim shekibel get, that before she received the get, that he went ahead and what? He did an aveira, is making a mistake. Shnemar, David was all his way successful. Hashem was with him. Is it possible the chayt came to him with Shechina Imo and the Shechina would be with him? Alamani Mekayim. So therefore, if that's the case, when Nasan tells David, Madu Bazisas Devar Hashem, Lasas Hara, why were you mavazed Devar Hashem to do something bad? So if you didn't do anything wrong, right? If you didn't do anything wrong, what did you do that was so bad? If you didn't do anything wrong, so what was so bad? Says the Gemara, Shebikesh Lashos, he wanted to do the Loy Asa, but in fact, what? He did not do. Rashi says, what do you want to do? He wanted l'shachinima koyim shekabala get before she got a get from a husband. It says they would send as we're going to see, they would send the get back from battle. You know, if the battle took place, correct? So imagine the lineup in Besdin, a guy saying, right, lining up and giving the get. You don't have time for that. So therefore, they went to battle, and then when they had time, they would send it back. So therefore, Rashi learns that he wanted to be with her before he ascertained that, but in fact he wasn't. Amar Rav, Rebbe Dasami David Mahapet B'Dorish B'Schus to David. Rebbe, who came from David, looked after the schus to go ahead and be Malamed Schus and David. Madua B'Zisas Devar Hashem in Nasan's Teichacha to David. Why you have been invasive? Why would you go and embarrass Devar Hashem? Lasas Ra Rebbe Yomer Mushuna Razu Mechomar Shebetar. This Ra is worse than any Ra in the Torah. It's different than any Ra in the Torah. Shekol Rosh Shebetar Ksiv B'Hu Vayas. All Ra in the Torah, when a person does something wrong, it says Vayas, and he did it. The Kan Ksiv Lasois, and here it says Not that he did. Lasai, shed bikesh lasas. He wanted to do v'lo, right? And he didn't do. Okay, so that's Dovid is absolved of any problem with Batsheva. That's it. There's no ifs and buts. He is absolved totally. It's finished. There's nothing to talk about. Dovid was not one of the guys. I'll bring you the biggest raya. Let me bring you a few rayas. First of all, if she was an Ish, why are you telling me that she wasn't a Nida? It's like saying, well, the guy's a serial killer. He's a serial killer, but he was B'kaim Shabbos Aveda. Who cares what he did? He's a serial killer. If he was over a much worse Isha, an Isha Ish, why would you tell me he's not a Nida? Ella must be telling me that any possible affair there will be an intimacy doesn't apply. That's why it's going out of the way to tell you that. Sveitens, if she was a Ish, we have a rule, Asal Abal, Asal Aboil. The marriage would not be a marriage. How in heaven's sake could Shlomo HaMelech come for this union? So even if again, the mechanics you understand, but I'm bringing him a Metzias, it can't be. It's not possible. It's not possible. Rav Chaim Kanievsky has a Gevaldig Mashal. I spoke it out in Brachas, guys. Let's see, one day you go, you're driving along, and all of a sudden you see a van pull up in front of a bank. And you see two guys get out, and they have on their face, they have a black thing on their face. And all of a sudden you're watching this, they go into the bank, and what do you see? You see them come out, and they got bags in their hands of money. But before they get in the van, they take it off. So one guy takes it off, and it's Rav Chaim Kanievsky. And the other one takes it off, it's Rav Steinman Zatzal. Then you look in the van, and Rav Moshe Feinstein's driving the van. So what do you say? You go home, and you take all the pictures off the wall? Or you say, there's got to be something here I don't understand. So when you're speaking about Dovid HaMelech, you got to say, there's something here I don't understand. You can't possibly say, I got you, Dovid. It's ridiculous. Okay, so it's a Gevaldig Mashal. It's a Gevaldig Mashal. And the machination's over here. Okay, now the chet that he did do was interesting. I think it's a machloikis, the Bavli and the Zoya. I think it's a machloikis. We'll see in a second. So it says the Gemara, Es Uriah Achiti Kisa Becher. Okay, let me give you the background. David calls back Uriah, and again, he wants to cover up the fate because he doesn't want to embarrass Batsheva. And he tells him to go home. So Uriah says, how can I go home when Adoni Yoav and Adoni HaMelech, so he puts Yoav before, either he calls Yoav Adoni, or he puts Yoav before. So he was considered a Morid B'Malchus as a result. He was a Morid B'Malchus. Now, since he was a Morid B'Malchus, David had a right to kill him. David was the king. Good. Now, what did David do? He didn't kill him right away on the spot. He went ahead and he sent him he sent him to Yoav with a letter and told Yoav, make him animal fodder. In other words, the first guys who storm the city and they're going to get thrown boulders on them, whatever they do, make him the guy. Make sure he dies in battle. Good. Now, why didn't David in fact kill him on the spot? People would have said then, he's killing him only because he wanted to get Batsheva. So David, there was a reason he didn't do it. But so the reason he didn't do it is people would say, oh, he killed him on the spot. Murder Malchus, you know what's going to happen? People are going to say, look what happened. Anyway.
Besides the murder of Malchus, wasn't there an issue with Batsheva he was supposed to marry before that already?
Excuse me?
Wasn't there something with David? David was supposed to marry Batsheva already before Uriel?
Okay. We'll get to that. Now,
also, if Uriel didn't deserve to die, it's like putting Yosef in the bar. If he didn't deserve to die, he wouldn't have died in battle. The fact that he died shows that he was a Morid B'Malchus because he deserved it.
No, Yosef it's the opposite. It's the opposite.
Yeah.
It's the opposite. Dying in battle, according to that Arachayim, could be that this guy killed you and you weren't deserving of death. Putting the animal as a bechira. It's the opposite.
The Nechashim HaAkravim didn't have a chira. Remember that, yeah.
Okay, anyway. Esuriah achiti kisa b'cherev, shahoyo choladoini b'sanhedrim v'loidananta. This is where there's a conflict between the Zohar and over here. It's mashma, you should have judged him in Sanhedrin, you didn't. In other words, over here, where you use the koyach as Morid B'Malchus, this is the way the Ein Yaakov learns. Over here, Dafni, you should have judged him in Sanhedrin, and not judge him as a Morid B'Malchus. That people shouldn't think you're abusing your position. In this situation, you should have gone ahead and judged him in Sanhedrin, despite that he's Morid B'Malchus, but to avoid the Chilul Hashem, that people will say you killed him to get his wife, You should have judged him in Sanhedrin. That's the way the Yaakov learns from Shadia. And his wife you took. There's Lekuchin, there's Kedushin, because she wasn't an Eish Tish. Anyone who went to Mulchama Malchus Beis Dovid, could get creases leishtoi. He would write a get creases to his wife. Shenemar. This is where Yishai sends Dovid to the battleground by the Battle of Shol. This is where Dovid killed Goliath. This is when Dovid killed Goliath. We're encamped against the Pelishtim, and he sends them off and he says, "You should bring these 10 charitzim acholav to the head officer there. You should go ahead and visit your brothers. And the arubasam, literally their safety, you should take. My arubasam, the thing that what is ma'arif between you and your wife, which is kedushin. The thing that's ma'arif between you and your wife, which is kedushin, take the get that stops that. Take the get that stops that. So this is what I actually told you before. They didn't have time to give a get before they went to battle, and then there was a respite. They would go and get the gitim, and now David, he says, take the gitim from what your brothers and bring it back. So here we learned a lot that they went out to war. They were what? They were gitim. Good. So therefore, he wasn't guilty of an aces dish.
Laser.
Yes.
Laser. Isn't there a Gemara that says that she was 6 years old?
7.
7. So how can she do kedushin then? She's a ktana.
Right. The father accepted.
To give her away.
The father accepted the kedushin.
The father accepted. So the father was with Dovid in this whole story? Or...
What? Kedushin right now? No. Lekuchin means that it doesn't mean that David married her now. It means he couldn't marry her now. Now I'm not sure if after the first marriage you marry her again. So maybe he's asking about the question. He was a katana. He didn't marry her now. He was ma'anasa.
Okay.
The first time he was with her, there was no kedushin then. Okay? Meya.
I hear you.
Okay. It's a very good question.
Yeah, but Rabbi, you said the Mechavis HaMishnah when you brought down this whole chesed.
Yeah.
Was a cotton also.
That's to explain something else.
But Elam was a cotton also. He couldn't accept kedushin for her.
That explains something else. Now, kedushin d'Rabbanan.
Isn't Ma'anis itself an Avera?
She was considered an anusa. With David, again, as Yankel said, that David knew that this woman was predestined for him. If you look in the parsha, he didn't say who's this woman. He said, see if this is Batsheva Basaliyah. Where did he know that name from? Ela roy hoysa Batsheva Basaliyah David Misheshus made gracious. The Parshas Gilgulim, we all know that Adam was the Gilgul of Adam Arishan. Adam gave him 70 years of his life. And Batsheva was the Gilgul of Chava. This is all Kabbalah. But I'm saying David knew this. David wasn't Stam. David wasn't in a taiva to go ahead. Batsheva was considered an anusa in this. In other words, the question is, she's married to this guy. He goes off to battle, and now what's going on over here? So she had a begeder of anusa. That's why she was permitted.
It's crazy, this whole Maisa from parrots all the way down, and David was accused of being a mamzer. It goes from generation to generation.
I'll tell you, it gets much more involved. Both studied. David on his father's side, David on his father's side, and then you had Rus, the Moabiyah. And then Yehuda. If you go Yehuda and Tamar. So it's both maternal and paternal is Madna. Okay. Anyway, l'chol ha'pachas. Rabbi Yosef. Okay, now, v'oisei arakta b'cherev b'nei Ammon, and you who killed b'cherev b'nei Ammon, ma'cherev b'nei Ammon iyatinena shalom, you're not going to get punished for what? For the battle against b'nei Ammon. Afu riachiti iyatinena shalom. You're not going to get punished for that. My timer, Mor b'malchus hu yehavi. He was a Mor b'malchus. Amalei, Adoni Yov, Avdi Adoni, and Adoni Yov, and the Eved of Adoni. You see, he put Yov before. It's Mor b'malchus. According to Rashi. And I should go home? No, how can I go home? How can I go home to be with my wife when Bnei Yisrael is in in a state of war, right? I can be with my wife. So I'm a Rav. When you look into Dovid, you're only going to find the chesaron of Uriah, the Siv, Rak b'dvar Uriah Achiti, only the matter of Uriah Achiti. Okay? That's the only thing he did wrong. So he should have judged. So according to the Bavli, what did he do wrong? He went ahead and he should have judged him Sanhedrin, and he didn't in this scenario. And the way we're learning with the Ein Yaakov, that people shouldn't think that he used his position to get the wife. Right? He should have judged him. That's what we're learning. There's a Zohar over here that is Peladik. Peladik is Zohar, guys. Listen to the Zohar. It says, Ukra Omar v'lei nimtza itay dava. You don't find any hate by David. Rak b'devar Uriah Chiti. Rak b'devar. Rak l'mu'ute. Rak is a mir. Rak l'mu'ute ka'asi. B'devar Uriah, meaning v'loi b'Uriah. There's an Aveira by Uriah, but it's not the Aveira that you did to Uriah. Pirish. He's not learning that you should have killed him. Right? He's learning he's not learning that you should have judged him as Sanhedrin. He's learning what you did to Uriah was wrong. Now what did you do? You killed him with the Cherev B'nai Ammon. Listen to this, guys. Kol Cherev B'nai Ammon, on every sword of the Ammonites, there was a dragon that was engraved on the sword. The yukna of a dragon. And that was their Ihu Avodah Zara and Dilhoin. That was their Avodah Zara. Amakuchabrichu. You have to Chelelahu Shikuts. You just gave to that Shikuts, to that Avodah Zara, you gave it their manis. Begin to be shaited the Kotla B'nai Ammon Uriah, the Sagim B'nai Yisrael Ime. In the battle when they killed Uriah and other people in Yisrael with the sword, you gave them the ability to think that this is something to this Avodah Zara. And in other words, as Uriah rakta b'cherev b'nei Ammon, that was your Aveira, guys. The fact that you let Uriah get killed with this sword, that was the Aveira. Because when he got killed with that sword, you gave credibility to what? You gave credibility to the Avodah Zara that was engraved in the sword. That Peladik. It's a Peladik thing. And that's Pshat, guys. He was Mechal B'Shem. If you look into Hillim and Aleph, it describes the Chay, it says, David says, to you alone Hashem was chayta. To you alone. Because it was a Chil Hashem. It wasn't that he did something to Uriah. The way he killed Uriah was the Chil Hashem, allowing the sword. So I believe it's a machlekes between the Bavli and the Zohar. Like the Bavli, you should have judged him, you didn't judge him. But, so the chayk was what you did to Uriah. You killed him as a Merab Malchus, you should have done it this way. Like this, it's the way he killed the Timsa, that's so very between blushing. By killing him with the Cherev B'nai Ammon, what did you do? You gave credibility to Avodah Zara.
So according to the Zohar, when it says Kol Sha'amar Dovid Chata, it's talking about Batsheva. He wasn't.
No. Everyone says that anyone that calls Sha'amar Dovid Chata, the Chet Batsheva ain't Elataya. And what was the Chet? It was a Chet, but it wasn't Batsheva. Yitzi. Guys, Geshmak?
But a Melech needs Sanhedrin. Melech has a right to kill whoever he wants.
Okay, if you look at Taisvis, there's two. It's machlokes between Taisvis and other Rishonim. Taisvis learns you need the Sanhedrin to ascertain whether he was Merab Malchus or not. What are you killing then? Using the special power of a king, but then you're not limited to the halachas of Sanhedrin. You can kill him at night. The Gemara to be at night. All the halachas of Sanhedrin don't apply. The other way to learn is that he could have killed him. Clearly, the Zohar is learning that he could have killed him right away. In other words, as soon as Uriah said, Adoni Yoav, David should have taken the sword and just killed him right in the spot.
Rabbi, according to the Zohar, you think the Zohar is holding that the only one who died in the battle was Uzziah? And that's why it was
They lost the battle. They lost the battle, kidding. Many people died in the battle. They lost that battle. They lost that battle. But by Oisei Iraq with Cherev B'nai Ammon, you're seeing it's okay. That's something I haven't spoken out in the past. Okay, you good?
Yeah.
Okay, very good, very good, Shema.